Buddha discovered that there are 7 energy blockages that keep disease alive in your body, and all of them dissolve when you learn to sleep consciously. You're not sick because your body is weak. You're sick because your mind creates resistance to the natural healing that should happen automatically. These ancient teachings will show you exactly how to release these blockages while you rest. Millions of people around the world have already eliminated diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety, and even autoimmune diseases just by changing what happens in the mind during sleep. Western medicine is just beginning to understand what Buddhists have always known. Real healing happens when you stop fighting against your body and start working with it. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you're watching. Get comfortable and relax. Let's begin. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to get sick time and time again, while others bounce back from even the worst colds or illnesses almost effortlessly? It might sound surprising, but in Buddhism, people believe that true healing starts not with medicine or even with the body itself, but with something much deeper, your own mind. From the Buddhist point of view, understanding disease goes way beyond what you can see under a microscope or what shows up on a medical chart. It's about looking at what's going on inside a person, especially when it comes to the way they think and feel. Buddhism teaches that illness, in many cases, begins with an imbalance or conflict within the mind. Many people are used to thinking of disease as something that just happens to the body, a virus, bacteria, or maybe your genes. But Buddhism turns this idea around. According to Buddhist philosophy, suffering and disease have roots in mental states like ignorance and attachment. When you become deeply attached to something or act out of ignorance, that is, not seeing reality clearly, it is argued that you actually create what are called energetic blockages. These aren't just poetic buzzwords. In traditions across Asia, it's believed that the body runs on subtle currents of energy, flowing like water. When your mind is tangled up in things like fear, worry, envy, or clinging, those energy pathways get blocked. You might not see these blockages like you would a bruise or a swelling, but the effect is real. Energy can't move freely, things get stuck, and it's said that this eventually shows up as physical symptoms. Imagine going through your day carrying a burden of stress, regret, or anger. You might notice tension in your shoulders or headaches that won't quit. Buddhism suggests that these aren't just physical problems, they're the echoes of underlying mental struggles. The reasoning is that if the mind is uneasy, the body can't fully relax, heal, or defend itself the way it should. So the physical symptoms you feel, maybe a stomachache, chronic pain, sleeping problems, are reflections of what's happening at a deeper level. A lot of people, especially in Western cultures, are taught to tackle disease by attacking the symptoms directly. You have a fever, take medicine, you feel anxious, maybe use a pill. This approach has its place. But Buddhism argues that if you only focus on the physical side of things, you're missing out on the bigger picture. For example, if you treat a constant headache with pain relievers but ignore persistent stress or unprocessed emotions, the root cause never really goes away. The headache might leave for a bit, return, or even pop up in another form. Buddhist philosophy sees illness as the body and mind trying to signal that something is out of alignment or out of balance. This way of seeing things doesn't mean you should reject medicine altogether or ignore what your doctor tells you. Buddhists recognize the value of modern healthcare, but they also emphasize a holistic approach. In this view, healing is not just about removing unpleasant symptoms. It's about restoring harmony between the mind and the body, something Buddhists say is possible through conscious self-examination, meditation, and awareness. Meditation, in particular, is not just for feeling calm or reducing stress. In Buddhist tradition, it's a practical tool to notice the habits and cycles of your own mind. Let's say, every evening when you get ready for bed, your mind is busy replaying old arguments or worrying about tomorrow. By meditating, you can start recognizing these patterns, not to judge yourself, but just to see them for what they are. This gentle awareness is viewed as the first step in dissolving those mental knots that, according to Buddhism, may eventually turn into disease. But why does Buddhism put so much weight on the mind's role in disease? It all goes back to a core teaching called dependent origination. This is the idea that nothing in the universe stands alone. Everything is connected, and every effect has a cause. Physical problems don't appear out of thin air. They arise because of patterns in how you think, act, and relate to your experience. If you are stuck in a loop of negative thoughts or constantly resist things you can't change, it's likely, according to this view, that your body will eventually reflect that conflict. Attachment is another huge theme in Buddhist teachings. when you hold on tightly to something, whether it's a person, an outcome, or even your image of yourself. This constant grasping creates tension in both the mind and body. Over time, this tension might show up as insomnia, tension headaches, stomach problems, or worse. Buddhism teaches that holding on and pushing away reality both create dukkha, a term often translated as suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Ignorance, meanwhile, isn't about being unintelligent. In Buddhism, it's about not understanding the changing, interconnected nature of things. When you try to make things permanent or control what can't be controlled, your mind tightens, and that tightness is thought to constrict the smooth flow of energy through your body. Some people notice that when they let go of grudges or finally accept something they were resisting, they experience physical relief, a deep breath, relaxed muscles, even fewer headaches. From a Buddhist standpoint, this is evidence that the mind and body are in constant dialogue. The idea is that every negative thought or unhealed emotional wound restricts and contracts, while clarity and acceptance open things up. Noticing this back and forth isn't just intellectually interesting. It points to what you can actually do to help yourself heal. An important part of Buddhist healing practices is to look at disease holistically. Rather than see it as purely biological, Buddhism frames it as a disharmony. Think of a musical instrument where one string is too tight or too slack. The whole sound is off. Similarly, if the mind is rigid, resistant, or scattered, how can the body produce good health? So, Buddhists are encouraged not just to take medicine, but to attend to their emotions, relationships, beliefs, and daily habits. When you lie awake at night, restless with worry or anger, it's another sign, one that Buddhist teachers say is just as worthy of attention as any physical pain. This approach doesn't mean blaming yourself for every illness either. Buddhism cautions against harsh self-criticism or guilt. In fact, self-compassion, meeting whatever is present with patience and understanding, is one of the cornerstones of Buddhist healing. If you're sick, the invitation is to look honestly at your life, ask what isn't flowing freely, and be willing to explore the deeper layers under the physical symptoms. Awareness is where the healing really starts. As you observe your mind's habits without judgment, you shed light on the hidden corners where fear, anger, or longing hide. You might notice, as many Buddhists do, that some pains or stubborn health issues coincide with times of emotional conflict or big life changes. By watching how your mind reacts to discomfort or disease, you can begin to understand what the body is trying to say. One more interesting point is how Buddhism talks about kleshas, or afflictive emotions. These are states like anger, jealousy, confusion, or pride that cloud your thinking and keep you stuck. They're not seen as moral failures, just obstacles to healing. The more you sweep them under the rug or pretend they aren't there, the more power they have to create inner knots or blocks. Through gentle awareness, these hard spots begin to loosen, and it's believed that this allows the energy of healing to move in. It's worth noting that the Buddhist understanding of health isn't floating off in the clouds. People throughout history, especially in monastic settings, have applied these teachings to real-life problems, often combining them with natural remedies and traditional medicine. Buddhist medical textbooks, even those written hundreds of years ago, reflect this idea of the whole person. They look at how digestion, sleep, emotions, and even the seasons work together to create either health or disease. In monasteries, monks and nuns who fall ill are encouraged to first become mindful of the mental factors surrounding their pain. Is there grief, anger, or anxiety? Are they resisting reality or getting entangled in fears about the future? Meditation becomes a way to observe these states, make peace with them, and gradually reduce their grip. All of this is said to clear the energetic channels. Only then does physical medicine or food have its healthiest effect. Buddhism also recognizes community as a part of healing. Being cut off from others or harboring secret resentments can breed illness just as easily as a toxic environment or diet. Healing, in this case, is a shared process. Monks offer blessings, families support one another, and people gather to share their struggles and victories. This sense of connection supports both mental and physical health, reinforcing the idea that we're all in this together. There is a famous Buddhist saying that acknowledges suffering as a natural part of human life. Everyone, no matter how rich or healthy, will deal with illness eventually. However, Buddhist teachings urge people to use these times as turning points. Instead of seeing sickness only as a curse or failure, it becomes a wake-up call, an opportunity to examine the patterns of body and mind. Sickness is not a punishment, but a loud signal to look more deeply. Once you recognize this, healing becomes not just about returning to a symptom-free state, but about growing in wisdom and compassion. In practical terms, what does this mean for someone lying awake at 3 in the morning, struggling with pain or worry? According to Buddhist wisdom, it means bringing gentle attention to what is present, asking not just what is wrong with my body, but where am I holding on? What am I resisting? Or what needs to be forgiven or let go? Sometimes simply acknowledging an old wound, rather than denying or suppressing it, is enough to start shifting the energy. Sleepless nights can become moments of reflection and, eventually, release. Buddhist teachers also emphasize that disease is a universal experience. No one is immune, so there's no shame in struggling. Instead, the focus is on relating to illness differently. Rather than panic or blame, the invitation is to soften, listen, and allow. Being present with your pain, without adding mental resistance or extra suffering, is seen as a kind of medicine in itself. Over time, the hope is that such an attitude not only soothes the body, but reshapes the mind's relationship to discomfort and healing. Another key Buddhist insight is impermanence. Everything is always changing. Cells renew, thoughts shift, emotions pass. When you're stuck in the mindset that pain or sickness will last forever, it's easy to feel hopeless. But Buddhism encourages seeing every experience as temporary, including illness. This helps loosen fear and the tendency to get trapped in one narrow perspective. Over time, that outlook is believed to support the body's natural cycles of healing and renewal. Lifelong practitioners of Buddhism often describe how their view of health changes after many years. Instead of emphasizing a rigid idea of perfect health or a body free from all problems, they learn to move with change. They recover more quickly from setbacks and grow less afraid of pain. For these practitioners, healing is not a miracle cure, but a steady process of understanding and responding wisely. Even the act of sleeping becomes part of the healing journey, an opportunity each night to let go, soften mental tension, and invite balance back into the system. For those new to these teachings, you might wonder how to bring the Buddhist perspective into daily life, especially in the hectic modern world. It starts with curiosity, paying attention to how your moods influence your body, and vice versa. Notice those moments when anger tenses your jaw or when anxiety shortens your breath. Rather than trying to push those feelings away, see if you can sit with them, even for a few seconds, and observe what happens. This might sound simple, but over days and weeks, such mindfulness begins to change the internal climate, the way a gentle rain eventually softens hard soil. Teachers often recommend keeping a small journal, not necessarily to record every ache or pain, but to note feelings, stresses, or thoughts that show up with particular symptoms. Sometimes patterns become clear. Maybe you notice a certain tension always arises after a stressful phone call or when a big deadline looms. Noticing is the beginning of releasing. That's the Buddhist approach. This holistic way of understanding disease is slowly starting to find acceptance in the wider world too. Modern science is beginning to look at the relationship between long-term stress, emotional health, and physical ailments. Research is increasingly showing that your outlook, your ability to manage emotions, and even your deeper sense of connection and meaning in life are directly tied to how well your immune system works or how quickly you recover from sickness. So, while the Buddhist approach might sound foreign at first, it's actually closer to common sense than you might imagine. Even if you don't identify as Buddhist, you can still learn a lot from this tradition's approach to healing. The core message is simple: body and mind are not two separate things. Illness is a signal, not just a problem to erase. Awareness, acceptance, and intention play a real part in how well and how fully you heal. It starts with a willingness to look inward and the courage to let go. Recognize what can be changed, make peace with what can't, and trust that the same mind that can create suffering can also be the source of healing. So maybe the next time you lie awake or struggle with a persistent health problem, rather than just reaching for the nearest quick fix, you might pause, take a breath, and listen to what your mind and heart are telling you. In Buddhism, that simple act, done again and again over days and nights, is the real beginning of natural healing. When you really start paying attention to your physical symptoms, it often raises the question of what's happening on the inside, and that's where Buddhist teachings about these energy blockages come in. One of the most intriguing ideas is that there are 7 main types of mental and emotional patterns causing a kind of traffic jam for your vital energy, sometimes called prana or chi, depending on whether you're looking at Indian or Chinese traditions. This isn't about something mysterious dangerous or foreign sneaking into your body. It's very much about everyday mental habits. If you've ever noticed you get exhausted after a stressful day, or your stomach feels tight when you're worried, you're already tuning in to how these things show up. Buddhism points directly at 7 major energy blocks, and each one is closely linked to a recurring mental state: fear, anger, attachment, ignorance, pride, jealousy, and doubt. When these are active in your mind, they don't just make you feel bad emotionally, they are believed to actually slow down or block the pathways that allow energy to flow freely through your body. Over time, if you keep feeding these patterns by thinking the same stressful or fearful thoughts, they stick around like stubborn guests who refuse to leave. Practitioners say the body can only be in optimal health when these energy blockages start to dissolve, so noticing them is a key first step. Looking a bit closer at these 7, let's start with fear. While it's easy to think of fear as something that only shows up when facing real danger, fear is actually woven into a ton of daily thoughts. Fear of failure, fear of what others think, fear of losing people, or things that matter. The Buddhist teaching is that fear tends to make energy contract. It shrinks the space inside, leading to a sense of limitation. Have you noticed how chest tightness or shallow breathing can show up at the same time? According to this approach, when fear is ongoing, it can eventually manifest as problems with things like lung function, immune response, or chronic anxiety that weighs on the body. Then you've got anger. Everybody feels anger now and then, but when it's left unexamined or becomes a repeated way of reacting, it's believed to block energy in another way. In the Buddhist view, anger is heated and explosive. It speeds things up in the short term but leaves tension and sometimes even damage in its wake. People who are often angry sometimes report headaches, jaw clenching, muscle tension, or blood pressure issues. It's not about suppressing anger, but becoming conscious of it and recognizing what triggers it, because the repetition of that pulse of anger is what causes the energy to stagnate and keep circulating where you don't want it. Attachment is another big one in the Buddhist model. Attachment doesn't just mean love or care. It's about the inability to let things go, whether it's clinging to a person, a status, an object, or even an old story you tell yourself. Mentally, attachment means you're always bracing yourself to keep things from changing or being taken away. Physically, this tight grip can lead to tension in the muscles, digestive issues, or sleep disruptions. The body gets stuck in a mode of readiness, unable to relax or flow freely, and this is how Buddhists say illness can gradually take hold. Ignorance is a tricky word here. It doesn't mean stupidity, but rather not seeing things as they are. In Buddhist teachings, this refers to misunderstanding the nature of reality, which leads to chasing after illusions or resisting what's inevitable. This persistent misperception creates habits in the mind that aren't rooted in reality. For the body, such confusion and disconnection can show up in the form of feeling off balance, scattered, or emotionally numb. When you don't have a clear internal compass, your body's natural rhythms can get out of sync too, showing up as fatigue, hypoactivity, or even immune system changes. Pride comes next, and it shows up in lots of small ways, not just the big ego moments. Pride in this context is about separation from others, from vulnerability, from change. In the Buddhist view, pride blocks energy because it tries to keep everything under rigid control or paints an overly perfect picture. This can make it hard to ask for help, admit mistakes, or connect honestly, which leads to feeling isolated or cut off from support. Body-wise, pride can create stiffness, tension, or even block circulation when you're always holding it together. Jealousy is not just the classic feeling about other people's success or possessions. It also covers competitiveness, envy, and the ongoing sense that something is missing in your life. In Buddhism, jealousy twists energy inward, leading to frustration and a sense of being less than, which is draining. It's common for people to report stomach aches or appetite changes when jealousy is active, and the longer it sticks around, the more likely it is to show up as stress-related symptoms ranging from headaches to insomnia. Doubt might seem harmless, but constant doubt about yourself, others, your future, or big life decisions undermines certainty and drains the life force. Chronic doubt produces mental confusion, indecisiveness, and a scattered focus. Physically, people plagued by doubt often feel tired or weak and can have difficulty with recovery or healing processes. In Buddhist thinking, doubt is one of the last blockages to go because it feeds on itself and makes every other emotional state harder to shift. What's important to understand is that these 7 energy blockages are not just emotions you should stuff away or pretend you don't have. Buddhist teachings argue that the act of noticing, acknowledging, and understanding these patterns starts to dissolve their grip. You're not fighting against them, but shining the light of awareness so they change their shape and lose their controlling power. Think about times when you've felt a wave of sadness or worry, and simply honoring that feeling without trying to fix it, allowed it to eventually pass. This is the kind of mental hygiene Buddhists encourage, especially right before sleep. That moment before drifting off, when your mind is no longer busy with the day's activities, is the perfect time to observe whatever blockages have built up. You might notice a knot of anxiety, a wave of tension in your jaw, or an old resentment resurfacing. By observing with friendliness and not getting carried away by the story behind these feelings, you begin to lessen their impact. This isn't about sitting and judging yourself every night. It's more about curiosity and presence. Cultivating this small shift in attitude has a way of unlocking the body's own healing power, one night at a time. Why does this become so pronounced around sleep? For a lot of people, the day keeps them distracted, but the quiet of nighttime brings these blockages and their physical effects out into the open. According to Buddhist advice, the period just before and during sleep is incredibly valuable for this reason. When awareness grows and resistance diminishes, those mental knots don't get pushed further into your subconscious. Instead, you get a chance to face them gently, which is said to help restore the flow of energy and support natural healing processes while you rest. Developing the skill to consciously recognize fear, anger, attachment, ignorance, pride, jealousy, and doubt is the starting line, not the finish. This isn't what most people are taught growing up, but it can be surprisingly straightforward, starting with small steps. Maybe you catch yourself holding on to a minor resentment about a conversation earlier in the day. Maybe you spot a pattern of second-guessing yourself about something at work. The Buddhist view says that each of these little moments is a doorway to dissolving a block. Healing begins, according to these teachings, when you shift from blaming outer things, your job, your partner, your genes, society, and instead take a gentle kind of responsibility. Not the harsh, critical kind, but an honest seeing. For instance, if you notice that fear is your go-to response to change, simply admitting that fear is present is a healing move. That single act of witnessing, paired with self-compassion, loosens the hold it has over you, even if just a little at first. Nobody expects you to be perfect overnight or clear all blockages after a week of being mindful. The point is repetition and continuous curiosity. Buddhism encourages people to bring these teachings into daily life, not as a huge project, but more as a regular, honest check-in. Some people find it useful to journal each night what emotions or repeating patterns showed up. For others, it's enough to spend 5 minutes noticing the breath or scanning the body for places that feel tense or heavy. The actual method matters less than the intention behind it, to become aware without getting lost in judgment or avoidance. Self-awareness about these blockages turns out to be empowering, not just for health, but for your overall sense of confidence. If you know that your energy is being stuck by anger, or that doubt is sapping your momentum, it explains a lot. Instead of feeling like a helpless victim of mysterious body pain or emotional turmoil, you recognize that there's something you can do. Turn your attention inward, investigate, and begin to unwind the pattern. This is what makes Buddhist spiritual healing feel so practical to many people. You might be thinking, but how does this really impact the body? Isn't this all just mental tricks? Interestingly, there's growing Western research showing that emotional stress does affect the immune system, inflammation, heart health, and more. While the Buddhist angle uses different language, talking about energy blockages instead of serotonin, cortisol, or adrenaline, the bottom line is similar. When the mind moves from tightness and resistance to openness and relaxation, many physical processes improve in parallel. People often report better sleep, easier digestion, lower blood pressure, even clearer skin when they make a regular practice out of emotional awareness and release. Most people aren't aware of just how stuck energy can get, mainly because the mind is so good at distracting itself. You might only realize how much was pent up when you finally face it, such as on a quiet retreat or during a period of illness. This is partly why sleep is considered such an important window for self-healing. Every time you go to bed with conscious awareness of these blockages, whether or not you fix them that night, you're moving in the direction of better health. Over weeks and months, tiny shifts add up. An important nuance in Buddhist teachings is that these blockages aren't seen as evil or something to be eliminated completely. They're normal human experiences. Everyone feels fear or anger sometimes, and even the most devoted practitioners deal with attachment or pride in subtle forms. Rather than fighting to never feel them or obsessing about being pure, the emphasis is more about not being run by them. It's about making space for whatever arises and seeing it clearly, which is usually enough for the body to begin finding its own balance again. Another practical piece is how these teachings encourage working with the blockages directly, instead of only using positive affirmations or quick fixes. If you just try to paper over anger with forced positivity, for example, you're often just shoving it deeper. But if you sit down, acknowledge that anger is present, perhaps ask what it's trying to protect and breathe with it for a while, the feeling often softens on its own. This matters because holistic healing in Buddhism recognizes that what's hidden or suppressed often drives the very symptoms people want to get rid of. Buddhism also points out that each person may have a favorite blockage that shows up more often based on early experiences or life circumstances. Some people are trailed by chronic self-doubt, while others find jealousy or pride cropping up again and again. Rather than feel bad about this, Buddhist teachers suggest using it as an area of focus in nightly self-reflection. Just 5 or 10 minutes spent with this honest noticing can gently rewire mental habits and over time have ripple effects on physical well-being. One of the key practices for this kind of personal inventory is something called conscious recognition. It's the simple act of naming what's true in the present moment. You might say quietly to yourself, "There is fear here," or "Anger is showing up in my belly." This isn't intended to fix things on the spot, but simply put you in friendly contact with what's happening. Over time, this conscious recognition builds inner strength and trust. You become less afraid of unpleasant emotions and less likely to run away or cover them up with distractions. Responsibility, in the Buddhist sense, is different from blame. It's about ownership. You acknowledge where your energy is getting stuck, not to punish yourself, but to reclaim the possibility of change. When you recognize that your ongoing resentment or need for validation is creating tension, you have a chance to decide, even briefly, to respond in a new way. Maybe the next time a wave of jealousy or doubt appears, you greet it like a slightly annoying guest rather than a thief breaking in. This small act alters the internal landscape just enough that the healing energy, supposedly, can get moving again. There's also an emphasis on cultivating awareness about these blockages right before rest, when your conscious mind is winding down but hasn't yet disappeared into sleep. Setting an intention to observe and release whatever mental patterns are most active that day can set the tone for how your nighttime body processes, repairs, and recovers. People who've practiced Buddhist self-healing often talk about dreams becoming lighter, sleep getting deeper, or waking up feeling less weighed down by yesterday's worries. Nobody expects you to remember all 7 blockages or track them perfectly each day. The point is that you bring gentle, steady awareness to what's really alive in your mind and body, even if it's uncomfortable. The repetition of this process, the nightly check-in, the honest acknowledgement, gradually clears away some of the mental clutter that weighs you down. Think of it as regular emotional and energetic hygiene, much like brushing your teeth is to prevent physical decay. Making this mental practice a habit can lead to bigger shifts that unfold naturally and last much longer than temporary symptom relief. This whole approach stands out for its non-judgmental and accessible nature. You don't have to become a Buddhist, memorize foreign terms, or follow complex rituals. The essence is about being with your own experience honestly and patiently in the quiet moments before sleep or during times of rest. Eventually, this creates the conditions for the natural healing processes in your body to take the lead, as the energy blockages gradually soften and dissolve. When the mental patterns lose their grip little by little, many people notice that illnesses and physical symptoms either lessen or become easier to manage, and their sense of well-being grows. So as you reflect at the end of each day, just notice. No big production, no grand efforts. Simply acknowledge what's there, observe the patterns, and trust that with each honest look, you're helping your whole system recalibrate. By practicing this quiet inventory, you begin to understand the language of your own energy. Healing, according to Buddhist tradition, is not a one-time event, but the gradual, steady practice of clearing what blocks you and allowing your mind and body to work together the way they were meant to. That daily habit of checking in with yourself and gently noticing what's unfolding in your body and mind naturally leads to a topic that's both mysterious and practical for a lot of people. Sleep, or more specifically, the idea that sleep can be more than just downtime. In Buddhist tradition, there is this view that sleep holds a special space for transformation, a hidden potential for self-healing that goes much deeper than just refreshing your energy or escaping stress. When Buddhists talk about healing during sleep, they're pointing at what's possible when you blend mindful awareness with the body's instinctive nightly reset. If you have ever gone to bed with a problem circling in your head and woken up with the answer or felt better after a good night's sleep, you've already glimpsed a bit of what this is about. The first thing to understand is that in Buddhism, sleep is viewed as a powerful state where your conscious mind moves aside and a deeper part of you becomes active. Most people think of sleep as turning off, but Buddhist teachings say it is more like tuning into a different channel. The concept here is called conscious sleep, which usually means falling asleep intentionally rather than by accident or out of pure exhaustion. Instead of scrolling on your phone, worrying, or just hoping for the best, you prepare yourself for rest with a purpose, bringing some gentle mindfulness to the experience. This approach isn't about making yourself rigid or tense right before bed, but about guiding yourself into sleep as if you are handing the controls to your body's own wisdom. What makes conscious sleep different is the awareness you bring to the moments before drifting off. You're not fighting sleep or forcing your mind to stay awake. Instead, you notice how your mind and body feel, acknowledge any leftover tension from the day, and do small things to set the right tone. It can be as simple as noticing the rise and fall of your breath or silently wishing yourself well. Many people who try this say they gradually find it easier to spot stressful or negative thoughts as they appear, and then let them go rather than take them to bed. When this becomes an evening routine, you set up your mind and body to do their best repair work while you rest. One main piece of Buddhist advice is to view sleep as an open doorway rather than a temporary escape. If you live with physical pain, chronic illness, or restless thoughts, nights can sometimes turn into a struggle. In moments like this, there's a tendency to tense up or try too hard to make yourself sleep, which often backfires. The Buddhist way is to shift the focus. Instead of trying to force sleep, you aim for a peaceful state of letting go. This is where practices like body scanning and loving kindness come into play. Body scanning is simply noticing what's happening in different parts of your body, from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, not to fix or change them, but just to be present with whatever you find. Loving kindness, or metta in the Buddhist tradition, involves silently repeating phrases like, "May I be safe, may I be healthy, may I rest in ease." Both methods are designed to relax the mind, help the body settle, and encourage gentle self-acceptance. Another important tool is setting an intention before sleep. This can be as direct or as open-ended as you like. Some people quietly say to themselves, "Tonight, may I release what I no longer need and allow healing to happen," or something similar. There's no magic in the exact words. What matters is the attitude, acknowledging that the deepest healing often happens not by effort, but by allowing. You're letting your body's natural intelligence take charge. The intention acts as a guide, reminding you that the time you spend sleeping isn't wasted or unproductive. In fact, it's when old energy, habits, and even physical pain can start to unravel, simply because you are not actively tightening up or interfering. People sometimes ask, if all this healing can happen during sleep, why don't we always wake up cured? The Buddhist answer is that the mind has a big role in either blocking or inviting natural healing. During the day, resistance and busyness make it hard for the body to process what it needs, but during sleep, the mind's grip loosens. This is especially true if you've already done a bit of gentle preparation through meditation or awareness practices beforehand. A common trick is to make the last thing you do before sleep one of self-kindness or relaxation, instead of a dose of social media or another stream of anxious thoughts. This doesn't mean never facing your worries, just that you draw a boundary each night where you treat your mind as you'd treat a young child, with patience, understanding, and the quiet encouragement to rest rather than run wild. Even doing this once or twice can make a difference in how you sleep. Over months, it can change the quality of rest from dull or restless to genuinely restorative. Another key aspect from a Buddhist perspective is the role of surrender. Sleep is one of the few situations where you really have to let go of control. You can't think your way to sleep, and you can't force your body to heal by willpower. Much of Buddhist practice around sleep is about practicing this surrender, not in a helpless way, but in trusting your body's basic processes. The teaching is that the less you interfere, the more your body can repair and rebalance itself. That's part of why conscious sleep is seen as so powerful. The intention is to cooperate with your body's wisdom, not compete or argue with it. Science now shows us that sleep is a time when tissue repair, memory consolidation, and immune functions all ramp up. Buddhists would add another layer. The mind, when left unburdened by rumination and stress, becomes a partner in this process. Meditation right before bed lowers the background noise in the nervous system, signaling the body it's safe to switch from a stressed-out mode to one of healing and recovery. Simple awareness, without expectation or pressure, lets the inner systems do their work more effectively. Some people discover that when they use intention and awareness while falling asleep, their dreams become clearer, more vivid, or even take on a slightly healing quality. You might dream of letting go of something painful or of reconnecting with someone from your past. While dream content is not the main focus of Buddhist healing approaches, there is a recognition that the mind often works things out symbolically while you sleep, and this contributes to a sense of resolution or release. The act of gentle self-observation, especially as you're falling asleep, is believed to support the mind's subtle self-healing tasks overnight. An interesting point to mention is how sleep rituals in Buddhist traditions are almost always practical and down to earth. This is not about chanting for hours or using exotic techniques. The heart of it is nurturing a peaceful inner climate, settling your body, softening your breath, noticing tension without pushing it away, and cultivating a sense of goodwill toward yourself and others. Many people are surprised to find that just setting aside 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the day for these simple practices dramatically shifts their sleep quality. Over time, this becomes a positive feedback loop. Better sleep supports better daytime well-being, which in turn makes it easier to wind down for rest the following night. If you're wondering how to actually follow this Buddhist approach to conscious sleep, the answer is simplicity. For example, right as you climb into bed, check in with your body's contact with the mattress, the weight of your limbs, and the movement of your breath. If thoughts come, plans, arguments, replayed conversations, notice them, but gently return your attention to simple physical sensations. Most people can practice this whether they're experienced meditators or complete beginners. The body craves this kind of attention. It feels like a relief after a day spent being busy or distracted. If you get lost in thought, that's not a failure. Just noticing that you've drifted away and returning to the present moment is itself a part of this process. A lot of Buddhist teachers will explain that the biggest benefit comes from consistency, not depth. Meditating for 10 minutes nightly has more impact than one long forced session once in a while. Over weeks, as you build this pattern, your body starts remembering the cues. It learns to drop into relaxation more quickly, and sleep becomes more dependable. For people who struggle with chronic illness, pain, or anxiety, this routine becomes a way to break the cycle of stress and avoidance that often makes symptoms worse. Another popular technique among Buddhist practitioners is gently reviewing the day before sleep, not to judge, but just to observe with honesty. You might recall a tense conversation, a moment of fear or annoyance, or a time when you made a kind choice. With each memory, you bring a bit of openness. That happened, and now I can let it go for tonight. This process can clear mental clutter and help signal to your nervous system that there's no need to keep all those issues on high alert, enabling you to truly rest. Because we live in a culture that's so focused on multitasking and staying busy, the Buddhist approach to sleep is almost radical in its gentleness. It is not about hacking your brain or optimizing every moment for productivity. Instead, it's about trusting that your brain and body know exactly how to unwind and renew if you give them a real chance. With conscious sleep, the focus is on nourishing self-awareness for a few minutes at night and watching patiently as the benefits gradually appear. People often report that when they adopt even a tiny version of this approach, they notice physical symptoms soften, emotional anxiety ease, and their sense of well-being bloom in ways medicine alone didn't quite achieve. There's also the aspect of changing your relationship with sleep itself. Instead of seeing it as downtime or something to be squeezed in between more important things, Buddhist practice teaches you to value sleep as a foundation for life. The nightly routine transforms from simply turning off the lights to something meaningful, an opportunity to check in, reset, and create a pathway for self-healing. For those who find themselves stuck in long-term illness, high stress, or emotional turmoil, this is a kind of self-care that enhances medical treatment, not a replacement for it. You're learning to become your own ally, rather than an adversary fighting your own body and mind. For parents, caregivers, or anyone with a busy household, Buddhist traditions offer encouragement to keep things flexible. Maybe you only have 3 minutes before sleep, or maybe you drift off before the first intention is fully formed. That's perfectly okay. The practice is about meeting yourself where you are, not adding more pressure or expectation. If you skip a night or have a restless stretch, simply resume the next time without guilt. The body is forgiving, and the mind can always return to awareness. Older Buddhist texts even suggest that the seeds of healing planted at night continue to grow while you sleep and into the next day. When you wake, you might notice you feel lighter, calmer, or unexpectedly clear on a nagging problem. Buddhists take this as a natural sign that unconscious healing is at work, guided by whatever you brought gentle attention to the night before. Perhaps that's why so many traditions emphasize a regular evening check-in, and why meditation is considered especially useful at the boundaries of sleep and wakefulness. If you want to make conscious sleep part of your own life, start with what's doable right now. Before bed, turn down the lights, set your phone out of reach, and take a few slow breaths. Ask yourself how your body feels, not to fix anything, but simply to notice. You can silently wish yourself a peaceful rest, or recall one thing you're grateful for. These are the small rituals that help shift your mind away from anxiety and toward a state that supports deeper recovery. Just like with any skill, repetition makes it easier, and in time, these cues can grow into a comforting habit that your body craves as much as a warm blanket or soft pillow. What's truly interesting is how many people report not only deeper sleep, but also unexpected improvements in physical health, relationships, and focus throughout the following day. When your nights are spent resting in a gentle self-awareness rather than internal conflict, the effects tend to ripple outward. Your natural healing systems become more active, stress hormones drop, and you walk through your days with a little more energy and resilience. The most important thing to hold on to is that conscious sleep isn't a project to perfect, but a helpful, gentle shift in how you approach nighttime. There's no special technique or skill needed besides curiosity and the willingness to try. Down the road, as you look back at your experience and notice what has changed, you'll likely discover that the process itself has become as valuable as any result. You're giving yourself what so many people miss out on, a nightly opportunity not just to rest, but to reset, renew, and allow healing to reach its fullest depth, guided simply by the open presence you bring to those last waking moments each night. By making conscious sleep part of your nightly routine and taking those small steps of gentle awareness, the focus naturally shifts to something vital in the Buddhist view of healing: letting go of resistance. This idea tends to catch people off guard because it is so simple, almost too simple at first glance. A lot of us instinctively tense up around stress, pain, or difficult emotions. When something feels wrong with our body or mind, the first reaction is usually to fight it, ignore it, or brace ourselves against it. But Buddhism highlights that resistance, this habit of tightening or pushing away reality, is actually a major root of suffering and, over time, disease. You do not usually notice how much resistance you are holding until you start paying attention. It could show up in clenching your jaw, grinding your teeth, tensing your shoulders, or even holding your breath when worries come up. For some people, resistance is all mental, a loop of anxious thoughts, or a refusal to accept things as they are. In Buddhist practice, noticing these habits is important not because you are supposed to scold yourself, but because that awareness gives you the power to let them release. When you stop fighting reality, even for a moment, that old pattern of stress, a kind of internal armoring, begins to soften. The relationship between mind and body is hardly just theory here. Science has shown that chronic mental tension, stress, and emotional suppression have very real effects on immune function, inflammation, blood pressure, and the way we heal. From the Buddhist angle, this is about energy as much as it is about physical chemistry or biology. Resistance is described as something that creates energetic blockages inside you, blocking the healthy, free flow of what traditions call prana or chi. The less you resist what is happening, whether that is discomfort, sadness, or uncertainty, the more your body and mind can drop into their natural balance. One thing Buddhist teachers often mention is that surrendering to the present moment is not just about giving up. It is more active than it sounds. You pay close attention to your inner experience, let it be there, and stop fighting against what is true right now. For many people, this starts with learning to accept pain, whether it is emotional or physical, rather than constantly bracing for it to be worse or racing ahead to wish it would disappear. Just that shift from tightness to openness lets the body move from a fight or flight state to one that supports rest and healing. Letting go of resistance does not mean you submit to harm or stop taking care of yourself. In the Buddhist way, acceptance is the opposite of giving up. It means you face what is actually there without piling on extra tension or spiraling into anxiety. If you are lying in bed and your mind is busy with worries, or your back hurts, or you feel regret, you can notice those feelings and choose not to argue with them. You do not have to like them, but you can stop the cycle of constantly saying, "This shouldn't be happening." That pause alone is often enough for your breath to deepen, your muscles to loosen, and your heartbeat to slow. Over time, practicing this creates a more stable, resilient baseline inside you. A lot of Western advice around stress reduction teaches distraction. Watch television, scroll your phone, keep busy. That can distract you, but Buddhism is offering something different. It is about befriending your own experience. That might sound simple, but it is a powerful shift. When you can sit with what is real, even for a few minutes before sleep, you are sending yourself a message that it is okay to rest, that healing can happen without resistance constantly getting in the way. Mindfulness practices are the main way this is put into action. These do not have to be formal meditation sessions or sitting on a cushion for an hour every day. It can be as easy as lying in bed and taking a few slow breaths, noticing which parts of your body feel tense and which feel relaxed. You can name what you are feeling. That's anxiety in my chest. That's tension in my shoulders. Just the act of naming, feeling, and not reacting with extra resistance is what starts to support healing. It turns out that the body wants to balance itself, but mental resistance can stand in the way. Cultivating this attitude of acceptance and self-compassion is essential, especially before sleep. When the mind is stuck in a loop of refusal, telling yourself you cannot feel this way, you must solve everything now, you are weak for feeling pain, the nervous system remains on alert. That alert state blocks many of the natural rest and repair processes that should happen during sleep. On the other hand, when you gently tell yourself, "This is here, and it is okay for now," something shifts. People who practice this sometimes notice they fall asleep faster, wake up less during the night, and begin to carry less pain or tension into the next day. You might wonder if this means you are just supposed to put up with discomfort forever. That is not the point at all. Letting go of resistance is about honesty and presence, acknowledging what is real and giving it space, not clinging to the wish for things to be different. When you stop pushing or pulling your experience, the body, in its own timing, often finds new ways to process discomfort and return to health. There are countless stories of people who lived with chronic pain or illness for years who found real relief only after stopping the internal fight. Sometimes the pain actually decreases, and sometimes it just becomes less of a battle. It loses its power to take over your whole life. In practical terms, when you are preparing for sleep, you can use a simple method. After your nightly routine, take a few minutes in bed to notice where resistance shows up. Maybe it is a racing mind, an urge to get up and do one more thing, a sense of anxiety about tomorrow. Without judging or pushing the feeling away, you just see it and let it be. You might notice your body begin to soften in small ways. The face relaxes, the hands unclench, the chest feels more spacious. Each time you let yourself feel without fighting, you are helping rewire those deep mental habits that block healing. Another thing to remember is that resistance is sneaky. Sometimes it hides as perfectionism, the sense that you are never doing enough, never quite getting things right. Other times it comes up as comparison or self-criticism, especially when you are unwell. Buddhism encourages gentle awareness of these mental habits, bringing them into the light, not so you can criticize them, but so they lose their tight grip on your well-being. The act of noticing is a release in itself. A major benefit to working with resistance before sleep is that the effects carry over into your dreams and your body's ability to restore itself overnight. With less holding and wrestling, your nervous system gets the message that it is safe to let go. The brain can then prioritize memory repair, emotional sorting, and restoring the immune system. When the mind and body are not at odds, healing can happen with much less friction. That is why some people notice they are more refreshed after a night of letting go versus a night spent arguing with discomfort. If you are new to these ideas, it can help to start with tiny experiments. Tonight, before you go to bed, ask yourself, where am I holding on too tightly? Is it my stomach, my jaw, my thoughts? When you discover tension, see if you can allow that spot to relax, even a little. Some people find it works well to pair this with compassion, maybe placing a hand on your chest and telling yourself, it's okay, you did enough for today. Instead of getting frustrated if the feeling does not go away right away, just celebrate that you noticed it at all. That is a win in itself. One reason Buddhism stresses this is that resistance often creates the very problems we most want to avoid. If you go to bed dreading insomnia, each tossed and turned minute doubles the tension. If you hate your anxiety or pain, the effort to push it away actually makes it stand out more. This is known as the second arrow. The pain itself is one thing, but your resistance adds a second layer of suffering. By choosing not to pile on that second arrow, even for a short time, you lessen the total weight you carry into deep rest. Healing, from the Buddhist perspective, is very much about this skillful letting go. It is not a one-time fix, but a habit that you build through regular attention and kindness to yourself. You will probably never eliminate resistance completely, but every small bit you let go of opens up new space for balance and well-being. Some people like to repeat gentle mantras or affirmations at night, such as "I welcome rest," "I allow healing," or "I am safe to let go." The words do not matter as much as the feeling of permission you give to your own nervous system. Scientific research these days is increasingly backing up this approach. Studies show that people who practice acceptance, mindfulness, and self-compassion tend to handle pain, illness, and stress better. Their physical symptoms are often less severe, they recover more quickly from illness, and they report higher satisfaction and less anxiety overall. Doctors are starting to prescribe mindfulness and relaxation exercises along with traditional treatments, and many patients see measurable benefits in sleep quality, inflammation levels, and even long-term changes in chronic disease. For those living with ongoing illness or pain, Buddhist teachings offer hope, not because they promise a cure for everything, but because they show a way to relate differently to what is hard. Resistance can make the difference between a night spent tossed and turned, and one where you actually get some true rest, even if symptoms are still present. Over time, letting go of resistance not only soothes the mind, but helps the body operate closer to its natural balance. Daily practice helps train your body and mind to recognize resistance faster and easier. It becomes much more noticeable when you are gritting your teeth or holding your breath. With repetition, letting go of resistance becomes second nature. This means you spend less energy fighting what you cannot change and more energy recovering, relaxing, and genuinely healing. For many, this alone begins to tip the scales toward better health. Many people worry that practicing acceptance means they will lose motivation. For example, that if they accept their fatigue or pain, they will stop seeking improvement. Buddhism sees it differently. Acceptance actually creates the best base for positive change. If you are no longer wasting energy fighting reality, you have extra resources to put towards smart choices. Whether that's seeking good medical care, exercising wisely, or connecting with others who support your healing. Instead of running on empty, you recover real strength. It can be helpful to check in throughout the day, not just before sleep. Resistance shows up at all hours, often in the subtle ways you react to stress, inconvenience, or surprising events. Over time, this checking in becomes a healthy habit, one that helps you relax when your body needs it most. The strong association between resistance and sleep problems means that any progress in letting go can pay off in better nights and brighter mornings. At the end of the day, letting go of resistance is about learning to trust the process of rest and recovery. When you make peace with how you feel right now, you create the perfect conditions for your body to do its overnight repairs. You sleep deeper, wake up less tense, and feel your energy slowly renew over time. Even if illness or stress does not disappear, your attitude towards them becomes lighter, and this change, as countless Buddhist practitioners and now scientists have found, often leads to real improvements in daily life. By returning to this basic practice again and again, you're giving yourself a foundation that supports every other part of self-healing. It becomes easier to practice mindfulness, kindness, and gentle awareness when resistance is not in the driver's seat. Over the weeks and months, this shift can affect not just your sleep, but your confidence, your mood, and your sense of hope. Healing may not always look dramatic day to day, but the steady reduction of resistance adds up to a natural sense of balance and well-being that is easy to overlook but deeply powerful in shaping a healthier life. Once you start letting go of resistance and allow your mind and body to work together, a big next step for many people is actually learning to support this healing process more intentionally. That's where mindfulness meditation really comes in, especially as a nighttime ritual. Mindfulness is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot these days, but in Buddhist tradition, it has a very down-to-earth purpose. It is about showing up for whatever is happening in your mind and body without fighting it, judging it, or getting swept away. Before sleep, this style of meditation isn't about emptying your head or forcing yourself to be totally peaceful. It's more like checking in on yourself in a warm, friendly way and giving your body permission to put the day down. A lot of people say they struggle with sleep because their minds just won't slow down. There's that feeling that as soon as you turn out the lights, your brain turns up the volume with all the thoughts, worries, what-ifs, and little self-critiques from the day. Buddhist guidance is straightforward about this. It says the mind's chatter isn't something to conquer or escape, but something to notice, over and over, and ideally with a little curiosity. So, when you meditate mindfully before going to bed, you're basically giving yourself space to see what's happening in your mind without instantly reacting or adding pressure. For a lot of people, this act alone, watching the stream of thoughts, starts to loosen their grip. One common way to begin is by finding a comfortable position in bed and bringing your attention to your breath. You don't need to breathe a special way, just start to notice it, the air moving in, moving out. Your mind will wander all over the place. You might suddenly remember something from the morning, plan for the next day, or get annoyed about a noise outside. Rather than scolding yourself, you just notice, oh, that's where my mind went, and then gently guide the attention back to the breath or the feeling of your body settling in. This simple practice is at the heart of mindfulness meditation and forms the core of how Buddhist traditions encourage people to prepare for restful, healing sleep. What's powerful is that bringing mindful attention to your body and mind before sleep has real, observable effects over time. People often report feeling physically calmer within a few minutes. The heart rate drops, the breath naturally deepens, and that sense of being wired but tired decreases. This isn't just about surface relaxation. Mindfulness lowers stress hormones like cortisol, which are a big reason that tossing and turning happens in the first place. Buddhists have long taught that when you're mindful before sleep, you're actually helping your body shift from a state of alertness into what's called the rest and digest mode. That's when your body repairs itself, immune cells go to work, and systems like digestion and detoxification perform at their best. The next part to understand is that mindfulness doesn't mean you'll always instantly knock out emotional pain or troubling thoughts before bed. In fact, you might notice some discomfort comes up even more strongly at first. That's normal and even expected. The point of this meditation isn't to run away from anything, but to make enough space for what's showing up so the mind's grip can relax. If you're lying there and you notice sadness, frustration, or anxiety, mindfulness means simply acknowledging sadness is here, or I feel anxious. The act of naming what you're experiencing actually helps lower its intensity. It's almost as if the mind realizes it doesn't have to shout to be heard. Along with following the breath, some people like to include a body scan as part of their nightly ritual. This can be as short or as long as you have time for. Starting at your toes and moving up to the top of your head, you simply notice, where is there tension? Is there any tingling, heaviness, warmth, or even numbness? You're not trying to fix or change anything. The point is awareness itself, which often leads the body to naturally release tension you didn't even realize you were holding. Buddhist teachers often explain that tension is like a held breath. It needs to be noticed and released, ideally every night, so it doesn't build up into illness or chronic pain. Setting the intention to be mindful before bed is something almost anyone can do, regardless of experience with meditation or Buddhism. There's no need for fancy cushions or special training, just a willingness to pause, check in, and give yourself a few minutes of undistracted attention every night. For some people, this means closing their eyes and listening to the sounds around them, or feeling the way the blanket lies across their legs. Others focus on counting breaths or the feeling of their hands resting on their belly. If your routine changes night to night, that's fine. The core purpose stays the same, to meet yourself where you are, without adding pressure or judgment as the day winds down. Most people find that within a couple of weeks of adopting a pre-sleep mindfulness meditation, they start not only falling asleep more easily, but also waking up feeling a little more grounded. Often people notice improvements in daytime energy, mood, and focus too. Science is catching up to what Buddhist teachers have said for centuries. The state of your mind before you sleep often sets the tone for your sleep and for your body's healing work during that time. If you bring agitation, fear, or anger to bed, it can carry over into restlessness or even affect your dreams. But if you practice mindful awareness, even if only for 5 minutes, it's like priming the mind and body for rest and repair. To deepen this practice, some folks use guided meditations, which are widely available through apps or videos. In these, a calm voice typically leads you through breathing exercises or invites you to check in with various parts of your body. If you're new to meditation, these can act like training wheels, making it easier to direct attention away from ruminating thoughts and toward a gentle, accepting awareness. Guided meditations also often include prompts to notice sounds, feelings, or even the emotions that have cropped up during the day. The structure can be reassuring, especially if you have trouble settling your mind on your own. Mindfulness isn't a silver bullet, and it's not about suppressing unwanted feelings. Sometimes you may find the mind is exceptionally busy or the body is very uncomfortable. On those days, the invitation is simply to let the practice be what it is, around 5 or 10 minutes of gentle attention. You can even say to yourself, "Tonight is a hard night, and that's okay. I'm here for it." This attitude alone brings a layer of acceptance that supports healing, even if it doesn't bring total peace right away. Buddhist traditions are clear about combining mindfulness with kindness. The word for this is metta, or loving kindness, which means sending yourself thoughts of goodwill. This can be as straightforward as closing your eyes and silently repeating, "May I be restful. May I be at ease. May my body heal naturally tonight." Some people like to extend these wishes out to their loved ones, their community, or even to anyone who is suffering in the world. This simple act does more than just make you feel good mentally. It seems to promote a kind of relaxation that is both physical and emotional, setting the stage for true healing overnight. Intentional nightly mindfulness also shifts the way you react to difficult moments, both at night and during the day. Instead of an all-or-nothing approach, where you are either doing it right or failing, the practice is about showing up, noticing, and returning your attention as many times as needed. That repetition is key. In the Buddhist view, even a restless mind can become more steady and clear through gentle, ongoing practice. Over time, people notice that what used to keep them up for hours, a looping worry or regret, becomes less consuming, and the emotional charge around those thoughts starts to fade. If you're worried about getting bored, you can adapt mindfulness so it always fits the moment. One night, you might focus on sensations in your feet, the next, on the coolness of the air as you inhale. You can mindfully listen to soothing sounds or trace the feeling of your heartbeat slowing down. If your mind keeps jumping ahead to tomorrow, you just say thinking to yourself and bring the attention back. The approach is always the same. Keep noticing, keep returning, and do so with as much patience as you can muster that evening. Sometimes people ask if mindfulness meditation before bed can replace medication, therapy, or other treatments for sleep or health problems. The short answer from a Buddhist perspective is that it's most useful as part of a bigger toolkit. Medications may address acute symptoms. Mindfulness rewires your relationship to those symptoms. Over months and years, consistent meditation can reduce dependence on substances, but only as you feel confident that the deeper roots of stress are being addressed, not ignored. Buddhist practitioners often say that the greatest gift of mindfulness is that it puts you back in touch with your own natural ability to heal. Not by forcing change, but by creating the right conditions for change to happen on its own. Something a lot of people notice with ongoing practice is that even on nights where sleep is elusive, mindfulness meditation makes the wakefulness less stressful. If you wake up at 3 in the morning and your mind is racing, it's the perfect time to use your breath or gentle awareness to navigate those moments. Rather than spiraling into frustration or panic, you can say to yourself, "I'm awake, and that's okay right now." Often, just removing the struggle against being awake clears a path for the body to relax back into rest naturally. If you tend to have vivid dreams or nightmares, pre-sleep mindfulness can have a special benefit. By settling the mind beforehand and clearing out some of the day's emotional backlog, you often find that your dreams become less chaotic and sometimes even serve as spaces for processing and resolving deep emotions. Some folks even report that over time, difficult or recurring dreams lose their intensity as the subconscious works its way through stored stress in a gentler, more manageable way. Beyond the clear benefits to sleep and relaxation, mindfulness meditation before bed supports whole body healing. Regular meditators show improved immune system function, reduced inflammation, and better regulation of blood sugar and blood pressure. Buddhist wisdom has always insisted there's a strong body-mind link, and science now backs up that claim. The state of peaceful, aware attention that you can cultivate each night is more than just a mental vacation. It's a state that unlocks the deeper repair systems of your body. If you live with chronic illness or mental health challenges, or you simply get run down by modern life, developing this routine might feel like a tall order at first. That's okay. Starting small is absolutely fine. Even 60 seconds of mindful breathing at the the edge of your bed each night can set you off in a new direction. Gradually, you'll probably want to give yourself more time, simply because the body and mind come to appreciate these gentle, pressure-free moments. Over the course of weeks or months, patterns start to shift. You fall asleep faster, wake up feeling less heavy, and carry a touch more patience into the rest of your days. For families, couples, or those living with roommates, pre-sleep mindfulness doesn't have to be a solo activity. Some find it helpful to meditate together for a few minutes, or to share what felt heavy and what felt light before going to bed. Kids can join in too by listening to a calming story or simply breathing together. Mindfulness in the Buddhist sense is about community as well as individual well-being, so the supportive energy gets multiplied when even just two people practice this simple attention together. The biggest takeaway from Buddhist mindfulness science is how regularity transforms results. Sleep, by nature, is repetitive. It happens every day, whether or not we support it. When you marry mindfulness with that natural rhythm, you form a habit that doesn't just help you in crisis, but provides steady medicine against the ups and downs of life. Mindfulness anchors your routine, takes the sting out of the tough nights, and brings more ease and health to the easier ones. If you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be that nothing about mindfulness before bed has to be complicated. There isn't a correct way. The approach is curious awareness applied regularly. Some nights you'll drift off easily, other nights you might have to restart dozens of times as worries come up. Each attempt is a success because each return to awareness is a small act of healing both mind and body. You're nourishing your natural ability to rest and repair in harmony with what Buddhist traditions have taught quietly for centuries and what modern research is affirming now every day. By adding mindfulness meditation to your evenings, especially as you unwind for sleep, you're not just chasing more hours of rest. You're participating actively in your own healing. You're training your mind to be a friend rather than a critic, and you're inviting your body to enter each night's natural cycles without interference. With steady practice, the changes can be subtle at first, but they grow deep roots, transforming not only the way you sleep, but the way you live, heal, and show up in the world around you. When you get into the routine of mindfulness meditation before bed, it doesn't just change how quickly you fall asleep or how easy it is to handle a restless night. There's something deeper that starts to happen, and you begin to notice it in surprising ways. Buddhist teachings make it clear. Nighttime is a kind of special window for emotional healing. It's during these hours, when the conscious mind quiets down, that negative emotions, the heavy stuff we all carry like anger, fear, sadness, or regret, finally get a chance to soften or transform. Most people aren't taught much about what actually happens to their emotions while they sleep, but Buddhism has always emphasized this hidden side of night. Everyone has their own cycle with tough emotions. During the day, we all get angry, feel anxious, or get hit with sadness. But when we don't deal with these feelings, maybe we push them aside because we're busy, embarrassed, or unsure how. They don't just vanish on their own. Instead, they often get stored up in the body in a very real way. Some people feel it as tightness in the chest or belly. Others have neck pain, headaches, or a general sense of being tense. Buddhist practitioners have understood for centuries what research is finally catching up to. These emotions, if left unprocessed, can start to impact our physical health over time, making symptoms worse or even playing a part in long-term illness. That's why what happens right before sleep is so important. It's like you have a chance to hand off everything unfinished, painful, or unresolved to another part of you, the deeper mind, your subconscious, or simply your natural healing system. This is where Buddhist techniques become really practical. One core practice for this is called loving-kindness meditation, or metta. Instead of going to sleep replaying arguments or worries, metta invites you to repeat simple phrases of goodwill. May I be safe, may I be happy, may I find peace tonight. Even if it feels a little awkward at first, this act of gently sending good wishes softens the charge around anger, fear, or sadness. Night after night, you start to feel less haunted by the same emotional loops. Forgiveness practices also play a key role in this process. Buddhist traditions suggest that holding grudges or carrying guilt is like dragging around extra baggage. Before sleep, some people picture someone they're upset with and silently say, "I forgive you as best I can tonight," or "May we both find ease." You don't have to force a sense of forgiveness, but just setting the intention for relief can help. Doing this consistently is linked with lower levels of inflammation in the body, something that modern science measures and tracks, especially in connection with stress and chronic illness. A big point here is that the mind, especially as it prepares for and enters sleep, becomes more open to suggestion and healing. The normal filters that keep us distracted or rigid in our thoughts drop away. When you deliberately bring up kindness or forgiveness at this moment, you're not painting over your real feelings, but you're nudging the mind and body to let go of their tight grip just a little. This tiny shift can be enough for physical tension or emotional pain to let up, and sometimes for the first time all day. Breathing is the most basic but powerful tool in this process. If you notice that anger is stuck in your body or that fear is rising as you try to fall asleep, you can always work with your breath. Slow, steady breathing directly lowers the fight or flight response that keeps those emotions locked in place. Some people match their breath to simple phrases like breathing in, I calm, breathing out, I let go. It sounds too easy, but after some repetition, it truly starts to change your mood. The link between slow breathing, emotional balance, and healthy sleep is now backed by many studies. Another thing Buddhist teachers often share is about gratitude. When you intentionally think of something, anything positive from your day before you sleep, you are steering your attention away from pain and toward what is nourishing or safe. You're not ignoring your struggles, but you're choosing to end the day by reminding your mind that not everything is difficult or scary. In time, this habit can rewire your response to stress. It's not that anger, fear, or sadness will never arise, but they become more manageable and less likely to control your sleep or your health. Night is also a time when the stories we tell ourselves are kind of put on pause. If you practice mindfulness or loving kindness before bed, you start to notice the old mental records, complaints about others, harsh self-judgment, anxiety about the future, just don't stick around as long. You might still wake up with worries or have an emotional dream, but the general loudness of those negative stories dies down. The subconscious can process them more gently and logically, almost like emotional house cleaning. People who struggle with chronic health problems sometimes notice a surprising benefit here. As emotional pain starts to release overnight, physical symptoms can ease up. For instance, those who deal with tension headaches, high blood pressure, or chronic fatigue might wake feeling less weighed down or find their symptoms are a little better managed. It's not magic, it's your body responding to a lighter mental load. Medical research is starting to show that things like nighttime forgiveness and gratitude practices can lower markers of inflammation and stress hormones, which is a big part of why sleep becomes more healing. Routine is really at the heart of this practice. Making a habit out of nighttime emotional processing is just as important as brushing your teeth or washing your face. Even on nights when you're pressed for time, just a minute or two of silent wishing, forgiveness, or relaxed breathing can set the stage for better sleep. You can make it your own. Some people like to journal about things they want to let go of, while others meditate or listen to a short guided practice. However you do it, the consistent message from Buddhism is, don't drag today's hardest feelings into tomorrow. Hand them off to the night and let your mind do its quieter work. There are a lot of practical tips from Buddhist tradition that help with transforming negative emotion overnight. One is simply noting when you're carrying anger or discomfort rather than shoving it away. Another is speaking kindly to yourself, reminding your mind that it's safe to let tension go now. Some teachers suggest picturing your bad feelings dissolving into the pillow or floating off like clouds with every exhaled breath. The idea isn't to fix your emotions instantly, but to keep the door open for something softer and lighter to replace them as sleep settles in. In situations where people deal with major trauma or overwhelming emotions, it's clear that this work is a long and gentle process. Buddhism supports the use of community, therapy, and other supports alongside meditation. Still, even for people who have a lot to process, the basic tools of breath, loving kindness, and intention setting offer a place to start. They encourage small steps and regular check-ins with your mind each night. The steady passage of time is your ally here. A lot of people wonder if emotional processing while asleep is real. Does your mind actually resolve stuff while you aren't aware? There's growing evidence that some of our deepest mental and emotional work happens during a certain phase of sleep known as REM, rapid eye movement sleep. That's when the mind sorts through memories, tucks away lessons, and files emotions for later. Buddhist teachings overlap with this. By preparing your mind for rest with kindness or forgiveness, you're pointing your subconscious subconscious in a helpful direction, giving it instructions that keep working even after consciousness fades. Nighttime is also the time when the filters of judgment drop away. You're not working, you're not managing kids, you're not putting on a brave face. Because of that, your core feelings, both positive and negative, surface more easily. Instead of dreading this, Buddhism suggests welcoming it as your natural chance to clear emotional clutter. A simple meditation or a round of gentle breathing done nightly soon teaches you that even your toughest feelings are less overwhelming in the quiet of the night. Dreams can play a big role too. If you bring mindful intention and gratitude to the edge of sleep, a lot of people notice their dreams become kinder, more hopeful, or at least less intense. People sometimes report that recurring nightmares or stressful dreams fade away after weeks of nightly loving-kindness practice. This is something Buddhist teachers have noticed for centuries, and modern psychologists are starting to measure. When your emotional knots get some attention before sleep, your subconscious does less work in the form of wild or scary dreams. It finds gentler ways to process. For anyone who wants to try this, it helps to end your day with a short, structured practice. Sit or lie quietly, close your eyes, and check in with your body. Notice tension, heavy emotions, or leftover stress. No need to name them all, just see what's there. Begin to breathe slowly, and either repeat a simple forgiveness phrase or wish yourself and others well. Doing this for a few minutes as the very last activity before sleeping makes it more effective than anything you do earlier in the day. The closer to the gate of sleep, the more receptive your subconscious is. Family dynamics or relationship stress is a common source of negative emotion for many people, and it usually pops up at bedtime when you can't distract yourself. Buddhist teachings are very gentle about this. They don't push you to fix all your hurt overnight, but to honestly acknowledge what's present and set it aside for the night. The wisdom here is that if you offer even a sliver of goodwill or forgiveness, it becomes easier to relax into sleep and wake up with a slightly different perspective the next day. Gradually, tough conversations become easier, old wounds hurt less, and your overall resilience grows. For parents or caregivers, teaching children a simple version of this, like saying what they're thankful for or wishing themselves nice dreams, helps kids establish healthy emotional habits early. Adults and children both carry emotion in their bodies. The method is the same, no matter the age. Acknowledge, breathe, offer a little kindness or forgiveness, and let the rest be handled by sleep. A particular area where Buddhist overnight emotional practices shine is in dealing with fear, especially health anxiety or worry about the future. Nighttime is a classic breeding ground for racing thoughts, what-if scenarios, or a replay of all your worst fears in your head. The Buddhist response isn't to try and force these thoughts away, but to notice and gently redirect them. Fear is here. It's okay to rest now. Repeat that, breathe, and let yourself off the hook. Night by night, as your brain learns this softer way of responding, the sting of fear often eases. Sometimes negative emotions have been with us for years. Buddhist advice for stuck emotions is to approach them with patience. There's no race to finish grief, no rush to erase old anger. Think of every night as one extra drop of healing added to a well. Some nights, dramatic shifts happen. A wave of relief, a forgiving dream, or waking up finally ready for a tough conversation. More often, it's a gentle, steady process, and that's how the deep healing really takes root for good. If you wake during the night and emotions flare up, you can use the same tools. Eyes open or closed, place your hand over your heart or stomach, breathe deeply, and repeat your chosen phrase of compassion or forgiveness. This turns the night from a time of suffering into a period of unexpected comfort. Many people find that a few rounds of such kindness work better than hours of frustration and make it easier to return to sleep. The big conclusion from all this is that your mind and body are wired to heal overnight. They just need a little direction. Through a nightly habit of gratitude, loving kindness, simple forgiveness, and patient breath work, you can steadily chip away at even old, deep-seated emotional blocks. You might never completely erase every negative emotion from your life, but you'll likely notice you have far more space inside. Space for better rest, for improved health, and for handling whatever comes your way tomorrow. It's this quiet, gradual transformation that has guided Buddhist teachings about nighttime healing for more than 2,000 years, and it's also what science is beginning to map out for all of us in today's world. All these practices of kindness, gratitude, and mindful awareness before sleep really set the perfect environment for something that Buddhist teachings hold in especially high regard, using intention and visualization as part of your nightly healing routine. When you dive into the Buddhist approach, the idea is pretty straightforward. What you focus on as you fall asleep has a real impact on your mind, your emotions, and even how your body repairs itself. It's more practical than it sounds. You can actually teach your subconscious to work on healing, repair, and becoming more resilient just by spending a few simple minutes on intention and visualization before you drift off. A lot of people are surprised at how much our minds remain at work during sleep. Science has shown that the brain is active, sorting, processing, and even solving problems as you rest. In Buddhism, the nighttime is seen as an opportunity to harness this natural ability, not only to let go of stress, but to deliberately invite healing. That is why so many Buddhist practices focus on what you pay attention to, or what you plant in your mind in those last moments awake. The mind, already softened by relaxation or meditation, is more receptive, almost like fertile soil ready for new seeds. So how do you use intention in this way? It really starts with a simple, conscious statement, something you offer to yourself, quietly and with meaning. You might try, before bed, setting an intention like, "Tonight I allow healing to happen naturally," or "May my body and mind find balance as I sleep." These aren't affirmations thrown out to the universe without any feeling. In the Buddhist way, the intention is heartfelt and personal, even if it's only one sentence. You say it sincerely, ideally a few times, really letting yourself hear the words. This signals to your subconscious that rest tonight has a purpose. Over time, the mind gets used to turning its attention toward healing instead of just the stress and busyness of the day. Visualization is the next tool, and this is where things get interesting. In many Buddhist traditions, visualization is not just creative imagination, but a method for training the mind. You use your mind's eye to picture something helpful or healing. For sleep and health, this might mean imagining a soft golden light flooding through your body, or picturing every cell being gently repaired. Some people visualize their bodies as peaceful and pain-free for just a few moments. This isn't about pretending problems aren't real. It's more like giving your mind a blueprint or a map, something positive to work towards as you sleep. There's plenty of evidence that the subconscious mind takes these images and suggestions seriously, especially during the half-awake, half-asleep state. Buddhist monks often train for many years to use visualization not only for relaxation but for deep healing. And you don't need to be a monk. Anyone can try imagining radiance, warmth, or even a future self who feels healthy and whole. You don't have to get the details perfect. Just create a sense of ease or comfort with your images. A powerful way to enhance both intention setting and visualization is to make them a regular part of your pre-sleep ritual. That means doing it every night or as many nights as you remember, so your brain and body get the message. This is what we're doing before sleep. By choosing what you focus on at this time, you start to train the channel of your subconscious. Pretty soon, positive imagery and healing thoughts become easier to call up. Your mind realizes it doesn't always have to default to worry and negativity. People often ask if intention or visualization before sleep is just wishful thinking. There's actually a lot of research from Western psychology now showing that these practices can reduce stress, improve immune function, lower blood pressure, and even speed up wound healing. Modern studies in guided imagery, where patients are taught to imagine positive health outcomes, report faster recovery times after surgery and lower levels of anxiety and pain. The Buddhist tradition simply takes it one step further by combining intention, visualization, and relaxation, creating what many people call a healing space in the mind during sleep. There are many simple ways you can do this at home. One option is to close your eyes, take a few slow breaths, and visualize your favorite color of light gently washing over you from head to toe. You can picture this light dissolving any tension, pain, or worry, and then see it pooling in the areas that need healing. Or you might imagine being surrounded by a warm, soft cloud, or floating in water, supported and at ease. The key is to choose images that feel safe and comforting. Some people prefer a simple, abstract glow, while others might recall a place in nature where they feel peaceful. Whatever the image, hold it gently in your mind as you drift off. Another variation that is often mentioned in Buddhist teachings is visualizing yourself already healed and happy. For example, you might imagine waking up in the morning feeling refreshed, healthy, and energized. See yourself smiling, standing strong, or doing something you love. By putting yourself in this scene, even just for a minute, you teach your mind new possibilities and lay down new patterns of expectation. While this does not guarantee instant physical change, it does start to change your mental and emotional state, which is actually the launchpad for a lot of physical recovery. A lot of people never realize how often they go to bed rehashing old problems or dreading the next day's stress. If you make intention and visualization your last focus each night, you crowd out a lot of those draining habits. Over several nights or weeks, you may start waking up feeling a little lighter, as if the mind has done some editing or organizing while you slept. Buddhist practitioners sometimes describe dreams becoming less stressful or even transforming old worries into oddly pleasant or creative experiences. This is the mind's way of digesting and dissolving old content, letting healing happen deeper than if you just stayed on the surface. The language you use is important with these practices. Buddhist teachers recommend positive, clear, and gentle language for intentions. Instead of, "I don't want to hurt," you'd use, "I allow myself to feel comfort." Instead of, "I don't want to be anxious," try, "May I find peace as I sleep." This makes a difference because your mind responds better to things framed in the positive. You're inviting a change rather than fighting against a problem. This attitude of invitation is really at the heart of Buddhist healing. One common question is how to deal with skepticism or those nights when everything feels forced. It's totally normal for intention or visualization to feel awkward or even silly at first, especially if you weren't raised with these ideas. Buddhism handles this by suggesting you keep things simple and don't force yourself to be convinced. Just do the practice gently, without checking for dramatic results every morning. The effects are cumulative, not instant. What matters is that night after night, you're showing up with a goodwill focus, building a new habit that creates real results over weeks and months. Another helpful layer is combining visualization with physical sensations. For example, as you breathe out, imagine tension draining away or picture pain leaving the body with every exhale. Or, as you inhale, visualize light and energy pouring in. This combination, using both mind and body cues, really seems to deepen the relaxation response and makes the images stick better in your memory. Some Buddhist guided meditations walk you through this step by step, but you can always improvise your own version based on what feels soothing or inspiring. Buddhist traditions also encourage bringing gratitude and celebration into these nightly intentions. Even if your health challenge is overwhelming or progress is slow, you can take a few seconds to acknowledge what is already working, no matter how small. You might say, "I'm grateful my breath feels a bit deeper tonight," or "Thank you, body, for what you managed today." Including gratitude in your nightly visualization practice is linked in research to better sleep quality, a more positive mood, and lower levels of inflammation overnight. It's a way of cooperating with your body, encouraging rather than criticizing, which tends to get better results in the long term. If you share your life with others, you can invite them to set intentions together, even if it is just a simple phrase like, "May we all wake up a little more peaceful tomorrow." Families and partners sometimes find that this brings a new level of connection, as even a short practice helps dissolve tension and brings everyone into harmony as the day ends. Buddhism teaches that when you set positive intentions for health and happiness, it not only benefits you, but has a ripple effect toward people around you. This is one reason many Buddhist sleep rituals include wishes for loved ones and the wider world, not just personal healing. For those who battle specific illnesses or recurring pain, it can be extremely helpful to tailor your intention or visualization each night. For example, if you live with back pain, you might visualize comfort and warmth moving directly into that area, or see your vertebrae aligning gently as you sleep. If anxiety is your challenge, picturing your mind floating in a calm lake or resting under a vast, clear sky can have a surprisingly deep effect. The more personalized your images, the better your subconscious understands the message and translates it into restful healing activity during the night. Sometimes images and intentions change over time. You may start with simple color or light, and over weeks find new scenes or sensations that better fit your needs. This evolution is actually encouraged. Buddhism emphasizes flexibility and natural progression over rigid routines. Trust that your mind knows what it needs. If something feels stale, mix it up. The whole idea is to support what's nourishing, not follow rules for the sake of rules. Night after night, as you repeat these simple practices, you'll probably notice that you carry less fear into sleep and you wake up with a clearer sense of purpose. Over time, you may catch yourself using these skills automatically during a difficult moment in the day or whenever stress arises. That's one of the greatest outcomes of Buddhist sleep rituals. What starts at night starts spilling over into daylight hours, so your mind gets stronger at guiding itself toward what's healthy and healing all the time. Scientific backing for these Buddhist methods is stronger every year. Medical studies now show that guided imagery, visualization, and positive intention lead to faster healing after injuries and medical procedures. Chronic pain patients using visualization often report less pain and reduced reliance on medication. Even elite athletes use mental rehearsal before sleep to speed recovery and sharpen focus, and these methods are increasingly recommended in mainstream therapy for everything from depression to high blood pressure. The Buddhist tradition is unique in how it weaves together these techniques, making the mind-body link explicit and training you to use sleep not just as rest, but as active recovery time. Dreams can also benefit from intention and visualization. People who practice visualizing positive scenes or setting healing intentions before bed often find their dreams shift in tone. They become less threatening, more creative, and sometimes even problem-solving in nature. For people who struggle with nightmares, this can be a huge relief, providing both practical rest and a boost to emotional healing. It may take several nights or weeks, but the mind seems to listen to the instructions you offer it before sleep, shaping the content and emotional tone of the night. If you ever find yourself waking up in the middle of the night or having trouble falling back asleep, these tools work just as well to reset. Repeat your intention, bring up a favorite image, and let the mind settle without pressure. Even if wakefulness lasts a while, the experience can still be restorative, and over time, sleep itself becomes less of a battleground. With all of these approaches, the emphasis is always on kindness and patience toward yourself. There's no perfect way to set an intention or visualize healing, and the real progress comes not from perfection but from consistency. It helps to end each routine by gently telling yourself it's enough, no matter how quickly change happens. This is a long-term investment in your health, confidence, and overall balance. You might also notice over months that your perspective on illness or discomfort shifts. Instead of anxiety or frustration, you start to meet these issues with curiosity and a bit more patience. The sense of empowerment grows. You're not just waiting passively for health to improve, you're participating in your own recovery journey night after night. This cumulative effect is one reason Buddhist sleep practices have been embraced by so many. There is practical benefit in feeling more at ease, more powerful, and gently hopeful, all while your body does its nightly repairs. No matter what life throws at you, knowing how to set intention and use visualization before sleep gives you a steady anchor. Whether your goals are healing from illness, easing anxiety, or just strengthening your resilience, this is one of the most accessible practices you can try. You only need a few minutes, a simple phrase or a calming image repeated gently as you drift off, and you can feel confident that your mind and body have what they need to work together for renewed health. And when you wake, even if the difference is subtle, you carry that healing spirit with you, ready for whatever the new day holds. When you spend night after night bringing intention, visualization, and kindness into your wind down, it's totally normal to wonder if there's solid science backing up the benefits you're feeling. People are curious. Can something as simple as noticing your breath, picturing light, or sending yourself positive wishes really change what's happening deep down in your body while you sleep? For a long time, these sorts of ideas lived mostly in the world of spiritual practice and alternative wellness. But now, more and more researchers and doctors are starting to pay serious attention to Buddhist-inspired sleep healing practices. The really interesting part is that modern science is finding real, measurable effects, sometimes in ways nobody predicted a decade or two ago. If you look at studies from sleep labs, hospitals, and psychology clinics, you'll see that the mind-body connection, a central idea in Buddhism, is now a proven fact in medicine. For instance, scientists working in university sleep centers have measured how guided meditation before bed helps people fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and even spend more time in the deepest, most restorative phases of sleep. Researchers aren't just asking people if they feel better. They're using brainwave recordings, hormone sampling, and immune function tests to see what's happening under the surface. One major result is the drop in cortisol, the main stress hormone. After just a few weeks of meditation before sleep, people in these studies often show lower nighttime cortisol, better blood pressure regulation, and improved patterns of heart rate variability, the last one being a marker for how well your nervous system can bounce back after stress. Another area where science really lines up with Buddhist practice is in inflammation and immune health. Studies from medical schools in the United States, Europe, and Asia have shown that just 8 weeks of mindfulness or loving-kindness meditation, especially when practiced at night, is linked with lower levels of inflammatory markers in the blood. That means less swelling, better healing, and fewer flare-ups if you're someone who deals with anything from arthritis to allergies. Researchers now think that this may be because meditation, intention, and compassion restore the body's natural balance. When you're less tense at night, your immune system gets a break from the chronic signals that usually keep it overactive. Visualization, one of the classic Buddhist sleep tools, is another area getting plenty of support from research. In dozens of studies, people who practiced visualization techniques before or during sleep, even short sessions lasting 10 or 15 minutes, reported better pain control, faster recovery after surgery, and improved mood. Hospitals treating cancer patients, for example, often include guided imagery and visualization in their supportive care routines. When patients imagine healthy tissue, soothing light, or pain dissolving away as part of their nightly rest, their physical symptoms and emotional distress both go down. These effects aren't just in their heads. Lab tests show better healing, lower pain medication use, and speedier return to normal activities. You probably know that mental health is a huge part of why people turn to Buddhist sleep healing in the first place. Modern psychology now says this is not just wishful thinking. Randomized controlled trials, the gold standard for medical research, consistently show that people with chronic insomnia, anxiety, or depression all do better when they practice mindfulness, gratitude, or intentional self-kindness at night. One large study published in the year 2012 followed over 100 adults for 2 months. Those with regular sleep meditation routines not only slept better, but also reported lower stress, less rumination, that endless mental replay, and even fewer symptoms of depression compared to those who used only sleep medication or no intervention at all. Children and teens benefit too. Pediatric clinics are recommending that young people use brief mindfulness, gratitude lists, or loving-kindness imagery at bedtime, particularly those with attention or mood problems. Results show falling asleep more quickly, better moods in the morning, and less reliance on melatonin or sedative prescriptions. Parents who join in these practices report more peaceful home routines and fewer nighttime arguments. The Buddhist tradition behind this is simple, but now it's proven. Kids who learn to be gentle with themselves at night grow up to be more resilient adults. It's not just about feeling calm, though. Buddhist-inspired practices at night actually change how our brains are wired. Neuroimaging studies now show that people who meditate, visualize, or set intentions before sleep activate areas of the brain involved with emotional regulation and memory processing, while deactivating the fight or flight stress circuits that keep people up at night. One fascinating result is the thickening of certain brain structures, such as the prefrontal cortex and the insula, linked to self-soothing, problem-solving, and even physical pain regulation. Over months of steady practice, the brain seems to become more efficient in handling both daily stress and old emotional wounds, translating into better patterns of healing while you're asleep. One of the most surprising recent finds has to do with inflammation, which is now suspected to be at the root of countless chronic diseases. There was a study at a major US university hospital where they measured C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, 2 of the best-known inflammatory markers, before and after a group of older adults did nightly mindfulness meditation for 3 months. In the meditation group, both markers fell by over 30%, even after accounting for changes in diet or exercise. These participants reported not just fewer aches and pains, but steadier energy, faster recovery after minor illnesses, and easier breathing at night. The mind's influence on the body is more than just a feeling. It's chemistry that can be tracked right down to proteins in your blood. Another area where Buddhist sleep healing and modern science overlap is in the management of chronic pain. Over the last 20 years, pain experts from Harvard to Tokyo have tracked patients using nightly intention setting or body scanning exercises before sleep. Not only did these people experience less pain over time, but the threshold for pain, the point where discomfort becomes unbearable, was actually raised. people recovered from injuries faster and used less medication. Their quality of life went up and their sleep became not only longer but more restorative, with more time spent in the deep sleep stages that heal the body's tissues. If you look at the tricks elite athletes use to recover, you'll find a similar story. Olympic teams, professional football players, and top-tier dancers are now taught to use visualization and mindfulness as part of their sleep routines. They're instructed to picture muscles repairing themselves, to imagine successful movement, or simply to relax every muscle group in sequence before rest. Team doctors say these strategies help reduce inflammation, repair micro-injuries, and result in fewer missed games due to illness or strain. It's not just mental, it's high-performance recovery, borrowed straight from principles that Buddhist monks have used for centuries. The question often comes up, how do these Buddhist-inspired practices really work on a physical level? Scientists have a few different theories. One is that by calming the mind and activating the relaxation response before sleep, you give the body clear permission to leave alert mode and enter repair mode. This is the phase when the parasympathetic nervous system dominates. Blood flow to muscles and the digestive system increases, stress hormones drop, and growth hormones, which trigger tissue repair and immune responses, are released. All the healthy processes you need for recovery ramp up when you're deeply relaxed and emotionally balanced at bedtime. Sleep researchers also point out that the act of intention or visualization creates something called directed neuroplasticity. That's a fancy way of saying your brain and nerves learn to follow your conscious lead, laying down new pathways that favor healing habits. For example, if you go to bed picturing comfort, safety, or healing, even for 5 minutes, your brain follows that script all night, and your body's stress systems get quieter. Over weeks, this kind of mental training reshapes emotional responses, so you spend less time stuck in survival mode and more time in genuine repair and regeneration. One breakthrough area has to do with how Buddhist sleep rituals affect the immune system. University teams working in immunology have found that mindful breathwork, gratitude meditation, and loving-kindness practices actually change the number and function of white blood cells. In these studies, the overnight immune checkup is more effective, so the body detects and fixes cellular damage earlier, fights viruses more aggressively, and clears out waste more quickly. In one group of patients with autoimmune issues, simply practicing a compassion or body scan meditation before bed for 6 weeks led to fewer relapses, less use of steroids, and less insomnia. People sometimes dismiss these results as placebo, but double-blind studies, where neither the participant nor experimenter knows who's doing the real practice, show consistent, measurable differences on blood tests, hormone panels, and even MRI scans. It's not just about being optimistic or relaxed, it's about shifting the underlying biology every night through regular practice. Another field that's gotten a lot of attention over the past decade is the study of mindfulness for trauma and post-traumatic stress. Many people with a history of trauma experience hypervigilance at night, trouble falling asleep, or emotionally intense dreams. In studies where Buddhist-style body scan or intention setting is used before sleep, these adults and teenagers report less frequent nightmares, reduced night terrors, and an overall sense of safety that carries through to the next day. Saliva tests revealed lower levels of adrenaline in the morning, and follow-up surveys showed higher scores for resilience and post-traumatic growth, the ability to grow stronger after hardship. Even the concept of sleep hygiene, which is now recommended everywhere from medical clinics to fitness centers, actually borrows from Buddhist wisdom. Ideas like clearing the mind before bed, minimizing stimulation after sunset, and winding down with breathwork or prayer have all existed in Buddhist tradition for over 2,000 years. Modern science now prescribes these steps explicitly for people with insomnia or chronic illness, and tracks the results in improved overnight healing, fewer medications, and happier mornings. For people who struggle with busy brain or anxious thoughts at night, the scientific evidence is especially encouraging. One large review in Switzerland found that participants who kept a gratitude or positive intention journal before sleep, writing just 3 lines each night, fell asleep about 20 minutes faster, woke up less often, and were less likely to need sleeping pills within 6 months. These effects held true regardless of age or other health conditions, which matches with Buddhist teachings that anyone can adopt these habits no matter where you're starting from. The ripple effects go beyond personal health too. Public health research shows that communities practicing mindful, compassionate rituals together experience lower rates of stress-related illness, absenteeism at work, and even reduced hospital visits. Some corporations now offer sleep meditation sessions as part of employee wellness, and healthcare costs have dropped as a result. Buddhism has always taught that individual well-being supports collective health, and now the numbers are proving it. It's also worth mentioning how these sleep healing practices help with aging. As people get older, sleep gets lighter and the immune system weakens. But studies point out that those who use Buddhist-inspired meditation and intention before bed keep stronger immune markers, have fewer memory problems, and report better mood and vitality well into their 70s and 80s, compared to people who rely only on medication or standard sleep hygiene. Dream science is catching up too. Researchers using EEGs, which measure brain electrical signals, and dream diaries have confirmed that pre-sleep gratitude, intention setting, and visualization make dreams more positive, creative, and even problem-solving in nature. Buddhist monks have practiced guiding their own dreams, lucid dreaming, for centuries as a way to deepen emotional healing and insight. Now, sleep laboratories are documenting how these practices can help everyone soften fears and strengthen self-esteem overnight. Of course, not every study has identical results. Human beings are different. What works quickly for one person might be slower for another. The important thing is that the direction of the evidence is consistent. Night after night, putting Buddhism's lessons about mindfulness, compassion, intention, and visualization into practice leads to measurable improvements in health that doctors, families, and patients themselves can feel and see. People are beginning to understand that deep healing isn't only about prescription drugs or surgery, it's a partnership between mind and body. When you use Buddhist sleep techniques, you are training your mind and physiology to work as a team, reducing tension and boosting repair and resilience. The best thing is that these practices are low risk, easy to start, cost nothing, and are fully compatible with whatever medical care you are already doing. So if you find yourself wondering if the small effort to meditate, breathe mindfully, or set intentions at bedtime is worth it, the current science has a simple answer. Yes, it really is. You may not see dramatic changes after one night, but keep it up for several weeks and check in with your body and mind. Many people are surprised by how sleep, energy, pain, and even mood shift. The ancient principles of Buddhist healing now have hard evidence behind them, and they offer a reliable toolkit you can use in your life every night, no matter your age, your background, or your health story. Hearing that there's growing scientific support for Buddhist sleep healing techniques is one thing, but what really sticks with most people are the personal stories, what happens out in the real world when people actually use these ideas to help with long-term illness, stress, and all sorts of day-to-day health struggles. It's not just about people feeling a bit more rested or less worried at bedtime. Around the world, millions have started to talk openly about how changing their bedtime routines and their way of thinking before sleep has transformed not only how they feel at night, but also their mornings, their bodies, and even their medical reports. You might meet someone who has battled something stubborn like diabetes for a decade, or struggled with high blood pressure through years of busy work and family demands, and they'll tell you their first step was medication or diets, just as everyone would expect. Yet more and more people in those situations end up searching for something beyond physical treatment because their numbers don't improve or their energy doesn't come back. Sometimes a doctor or friend suggests meditation, body scans, or setting a simple intention before bed, and it's then that a completely new phase of recovery begins. There is this story from a teacher in South Korea who lived with insomnia and anxiety for more than 20 years. Every night she would spend hours unable to sleep, thinking about her work and her family's future. None of the usual calming techniques lasted for long. What finally made a difference was a mix of Buddhist practices. She started with guided metta-meditation each night, telling herself, "May I rest in safety, may I let go of worries for one night." Within 3 weeks, her sleep rhythm shifted. She reported her blood pressure dropped, her energy returned, and for the first time in decades, she woke without a cloud of dread. It wasn't a miracle. She said it was just consistency and a shift of mental focus as she got into bed. In California, you'll hear about people in online support groups for autoimmune disorders who couldn't get their symptoms under control despite taking medicine and trying every diet. It turns out, when they began combining their treatments with regular nightly mindfulness, tracking their emotional states, and using Buddhist-inspired forgiveness practices, their flare-ups became less frequent. One woman with lupus who had experienced daily joint pain says she used gratitude journaling and visualization every night, picturing her immune system sorting itself out. Within a couple of months, her blood tests improved and her pain levels dropped so much that her doctor called her progress remarkable. There are hundreds of similar posts in those communities, people learning to balance what their doctors offer with what their own attention, hope, and ritual can do for them. In Germany, a group of retired nurses meets online every Thursday evening to do a loving-kindness meditation together. Many joined because of chronic migraines, anxiety, or side effects from decades of shift work. Over time, as they made these group meditations a pre-bedtime habit, most of them reported sleeping more soundly and waking with less pain. Interestingly, several in the group noticed that they caught fewer colds or seasonal illnesses, and they now believe that their rituals strengthened not just their mood, but their immune response. Members will sometimes say, "It's not about being perfect or spiritual, it's about letting my system, for once, have a real rest and a clean slate nightly." Stories like these aren't limited to one country or age group. In India, where Buddhist-inspired sleep routines are more integrated with daily life for millions, there are examples of entire families using prayer, gratitude, and visualization as their nightly tradition. Grandparents teach grandchildren to breathe deeply and imagine happy scenes before bed. Parents set positive intentions for the whole house. There are anecdotes of children with asthma sleeping through the night instead of waking in fear, and elders with diabetes reporting fewer nighttime blood sugar spikes. For many, the communal approach brings a kind of group confidence, the sense of not just healing alone, but taking part in a shared, hopeful ritual. Online and in published memoirs, you can find countless people who turned to Buddhist sleep practices after years of wrestling with mental health issues. A Canadian man with severe depression and panic attacks described 20 years in therapy, a medicine cabinet full of experiments, and still, most nights were terrifying. It was his Buddhist teacher who asked him to try a nightly routine, a gratitude list, breathing calmly, and sending a compassionate wish to himself and one other person in his life. After a few months, he didn't just sleep better, he felt steadier, his relapses became less severe. He even managed to reduce his medication with his doctor's support. He credits the change to the feeling that my mind finally became an ally, not an enemy, especially at night. Resilience seems to be a real theme in these stories, across cultures and ages. Whether it's single parents juggling work and illness, young adults coping with hormonal imbalances, or elders facing grief and loss, having a gentle nighttime routine that includes some mix of Buddhist techniques becomes a turning point. People report that when they actually track their symptoms, keeping a notebook or sharing with a supportive group, they see patterns that surprise them. Blood pressure starts to drop, blood sugar numbers even out, headaches ease, or digestive problems lessen. Several people with irritable bowel syndrome, for instance, wrote that their flare-ups almost disappeared after a couple of months, listening nightly to guided relaxation and practicing forgiveness for things that happened during the day. It might sound simple, but hearing about these global successes makes a practical point. You don't need to change your religion, meditate for hours, or move to a monastery. Most of these stories are about consistency. 5, 10, 15 minutes daily. Over the span of weeks or months, people describe feeling like a different person and say that one of the biggest changes is in their attitude toward their illness. Instead of being overwhelmed or hopeless, there's a sense of agency, a growing confidence that some part of their recovery truly is in their own hands, or at least in the way they relate to what happens to them. What's interesting is the growth of small community circles and online forums where people encourage each other in this. These spaces are full of practical tips, comfort on tough days, and reminders to keep up the nighttime routine, even when progress feels slow. Success stories aren't always about disappearing symptoms. Sometimes it's about finding better rest and acceptance. Stories of people living with cancer or progressive illnesses who use Buddhist rituals for relief. They share how visualizing loving energy or repeating gentle wishes allows them to worry less about the future and cherish the hours of true rest they do have. Even stories from high-pressure professions have begun to surface. In Japan, some young doctors struggling with burnout now use short guided meditations before bed. They write that after just a few weeks of intention setting, their sleep improved and they made fewer mistakes at work. A nurse in Brazil wrote an article about her group at the hospital, staff suffering from grief and exhaustion during the pandemic, starting each shift with a quick body scan and ending their nights with metta phrases for peace and safety. They agreed it didn't cure the hard realities, but it gave them the space inside to keep going and to care for their patients with more balance and less emotional depletion. It's worth noting that not every experience is dramatic or immediate. Some people write about small improvements showing up after 10 days, 3 weeks, or 6 months. Others go through setbacks, especially when life throws new stress their way. Even then, keeping up with the Buddhist pre-sleep techniques seems to cushion the blow. They may return to baseline faster or find it easier to get help because they don't feel like the same old bad patterns have to last forever. Chronic pain is another area where this approach has taken off. In the United States and Europe, support groups for people with fibromyalgia and rheumatic diseases share sleep ritual tips, many rooted in Buddhist concepts, almost like recipes. Each week, members check in on which visualizations worked, which intentions helped with panic or pain flare-ups, and how practicing compassion softened the hardest moments. These circles often highlight not just fewer pain days, but more functional mornings and a willingness to exercise or participate in daily life again, even when full remission hasn't arrived. Some success stories are about the next generation. Teenagers who struggle with performance anxiety, insomnia, or the social stresses of modern life share how mindfulness apps and Buddhist kindness meditations give them real tools when nothing else seems cool or simple enough to stick with. The shift is obvious in their grades, their willingness to talk about feelings, or something as basic as not dreading bedtime. In interviews and online classes, teens describe how sharing the ritual with parents increases communication and lowers household stress. In places like Australia and New Zealand, where distance and rural living can make access to therapy hard, entire communities have adopted small nighttime group practices on Zoom, wishing each other peaceful sleep, focusing on gratitude, or visualizing the next day going well. Users report that their healthcare visits have dropped, stress-related sick days are less common, and the overall vibe of their towns and neighborhoods feels, as they put it, lighter at night and brighter in the mornings. For people who travel frequently or live in busy city centers, Buddhist sleep healing offers an anchor no matter where they end up. Flight crews, salespeople, and those working night shifts have begun to use portable routines, short body scans or intention reminders saved on their phones to stay balanced and healthy despite jet lag or strange beds. Stories pop up about lower jet lag symptoms, fewer immune snags, or just the basic comfort of having something familiar and supportive at the end of an unpredictable day. And then there are people dealing with the hardest things, end-of-life care, major loss, or sudden disability, who say that sometimes the best result isn't a medical cure, but the shift in focus and acceptance. There's a sense that even when life is overwhelming, there is a nightly space to breathe, to forgive, to wish for comfort, and to accept help both from the body and the mind. Hospice nurses and counsellors in both the East and West describe the value of those peaceful final hours for patients who have learned these techniques, reporting fewer symptoms of distress and more genuine rest at the closing of life. When these testimonials are gathered together, one pattern stands out. Buddhist sleep healing isn't just about fixing symptoms, but about fundamentally changing how people relate to themselves and their experience of health. Over and over, people speak about getting a second chance at feeling hopeful, about life, about treatment, and about their own ability to cope. Sometimes that's the biggest win of all. Seeing illness and stress not only as suffering, but also as an opportunity to experiment, to connect, and to build confidence in their own nightly healing rituals. It's clear that Buddhist sleep healing has reached every corner of the world through these grassroots stories. Those small, private moments, setting an intention, practicing gratitude, visualization, or kind acceptance as you settle into bed, are powerful. When people gather online, in meditation halls, or just quietly in their homes, sharing what works and cheering each other on, new health possibilities really open up. Not every night is perfect, and not every illness will fully disappear, but the sheer number of global success stories now points to a transformation much bigger than just a nightly habit. A universal reminder that how you approach sleep, with the right practices and a little bit of faith in your mind and body, really can change your life in ways that science, science, tradition, and real people across cultures are discovering together, night after night. Listening to all these real-life changes happening for people, from lowering blood pressure to easing persistent pain, or simply creating a better mood the next morning, it's easy to see why so many are motivated to actually bring Buddhist-inspired sleep teachings into their everyday routines. The beauty of these practices is how simple and adaptable they are. You don't need to belong to any particular group, have years of spiritual training, or change your whole lifestyle. You just start with where you are right now and begin reshaping your relationship with sleep and self-healing bit by bit, night after night. The first thing that stands out when people start using these Buddhist principles in daily life is that it's all about developing awareness, especially about your mental and emotional habits at the end of the day. A lot of people figure out pretty quickly that the time before bed, when things are quieter and distractions fall away, is the ideal window to notice what's still swirling in your mind. Are you still replaying an awkward conversation from the afternoon? Is your body braced for tomorrow's challenges before your head even touches the pillow? The key is not to judge yourself for this, but just to honestly see it. Awareness is the opposite of denial or distraction. It's that gentle, clear look at your inner world, and this is where healing really starts to take root each evening. A practical way to put this into practice is to pause before bed, maybe after brushing your teeth or once you're under the covers, and do a quick scan. What am I feeling? What's tight or heavy? Instead of getting stuck on how to fix everything, just note it. Maybe you feel stressed about work or worried about a parent's health. Maybe your stomach is tense or your mind is racing. That's all fine. This short pause is like a flashlight, helping you spot all those leftover tensions or emotions from the day. The act of consciously recognizing them already starts the process of letting go. From there, a lot of people find that the next step is breathing, slow, steady breaths. Nothing fancy, just a few minutes spent listening to the rhythm of your own inhale and exhale. This is the quickest way to transition your body and mind into rest mode, signaling all your systems that it's safe to stop rushing, planning, or worrying. If you want, you can place a hand over your chest or belly to feel the breath moving, which gives your body a little extra cue that you're actually paying attention and ready to relax for the night. You don't have to make this a formal meditation unless you want to. Some people like to add in a few words of intention, saying something simple to themselves like, "I'm letting today go now," or "May I sleep in peace tonight." Sometimes, repeating a short, loving-kindness phrase from Buddhist tradition can be helpful. May I find ease, may my family be safe, may the world rest. It doesn't matter if you say it in your head, quietly aloud, or as a kind of gentle wish. The routine of setting a positive or healing intention as you move towards sleep is what does the work. Adding gratitude or forgiveness to the nightly mix is another Buddhist sleep teaching that lots of people find helpful. You might mentally list 3 things that went well today, or thank your body for getting you through one more day. If there's something that's bothering you, you can simply acknowledge it and say, "I'll work on this tomorrow. Tonight I release it as best I can." If someone upset you, try wishing them even a little bit of peace, not to excuse what happened, but to release the emotional grip. These little steps stop negative loops from carrying over into your sleep and can change the tone of your dreams and your energy the next day. Some families and friend groups even create shared rituals, like sitting together every night for a couple of minutes, sharing a wish for the next day, or practicing a calming breath together. In doing this, you multiply the effect. There's a sense of community, of shared support, and that's a deeply Buddhist idea. Healing is not just about isolated individuals. It grows stronger when people encourage, witness, and lift each other up. If you live alone, virtual communities, audio series, or even just connecting with others in an online message board can provide that same reinforcement and accountability. Consistency is really what makes the biggest difference, not perfection. It isn't about having a magical experience every single night or finding immediate relief from all your symptoms. These Buddhist sleep teachings act more like planting a garden. You water the seeds a bit every night, and over time the changes show up in new places. Maybe it's sleeping more deeply, responding better to stress, or noticing that old anger or anxiety doesn't stick around quite so long. Keep in mind, lapses are normal. Everyone has nights they forget, skip, or simply can't concentrate. That doesn't erase progress. It's just part of being human. Buddhism also stresses the importance of being gentle with yourself as you add these habits in. If a night goes badly or restless thoughts keep you up, the practice is to treat yourself with patience and kindness. Maybe you start the next night by acknowledging, "Last night was rough. That's okay. I'll try again." This prevents you from adding a layer of guilt or frustration, which only creates more tension physically and mentally. If you're someone who thrives on a bit of structure, it can help to set up a pre-sleep checklist. This doesn't have to be complicated. For example, dim the lights an hour before bed, put all screens away, brush teeth, name 3 gratitudes, do 2 minutes of deep breathing, set a healing intention, and then rest. Some like to use cues from nature, such as listening to a rain playlist or bird sounds, or lighting a soft candle, safely, of course. Others prepare tea or change into comfortable sleepwear to signal, in a physical way, that the transition to sleep and self-healing is beginning. You can adapt this for children, partners, roommates, or just keep it to yourself, whatever fits in your household. One of the most transformative changes people report is how their morning experience shifts. When you sleep after mindfulness, gratitude, or forgiveness, it's common to wake up feeling lighter. The stress hormones released in the middle of the night tend to be lower. That translates to a calmer mood, better attention, and more readiness to deal with whatever comes your way in the new day. People say they feel less behind or overwhelmed by life, simply because they've developed a habit of leaving the stress in yesterday, nightly. There are also ripple effects in physical health that become clearer over months. Blood pressure steadies, digestive symptoms ease up, headaches become less severe or frequent. People with chronic conditions report fewer bad episodes, quicker bounce-back times, and more open conversations with their doctors because they feel in tune with their own bodies. While these practices are never a replacement for medical care, they're a powerful complement that gives you more say in your own health journey. A lot of people are surprised by how easily these sleep teachings cross religious and cultural lines. You might set loving-kindness intentions, even if you don't call yourself a Buddhist, or practice forgiveness meditation with your children alongside evening prayers. In different countries, you'll find gratitude rituals, breath awareness, and positive visualization taking slightly different forms, but the foundation is always the same. Being present, letting go of today's burdens, and inviting the body and mind to renew. As you practice over weeks and months, the vocabulary and ritual get comfortable, like favorite pajamas. For people who deal with rushed schedules or changing shifts, adapting these Buddhist sleep lessons is all about flexibility. You can do the entire routine in as little as 5 minutes or stretch it to an hour if you have the time. It can be a solo activity, something shared with a partner, or even broken up into 2-minute pauses as your schedule allows. The important part isn't length, but regularity and heartfelt participation. This flexibility is also useful when things get especially tough, during illness, grief, or big life changes. If you're in the hospital or traveling or just dealing with more than you can handle, even a short loving kindness phrase to yourself or just a minute of mindful breathing keeps that thread of nightly healing intact. People often find that in their hardest moments, these small comforts make the biggest difference. Teachers and health professionals increasingly share Buddhist sleep practices with students and patients now. In classrooms, kids are learning quiet minutes to settle their minds before rest. Therapists may assign gratitude journaling or mindful breathing to clients struggling with insomnia or anxiety. Yoga studios, mental health apps, and workplace wellness programs have all picked up on these tools, offering short, guided experiences for people from any walk of life. Another tip that helps keep these teachings alive in daily life is using reminders. Leave a note on your nightstand that says, "Breathe." Set a calming phone alarm 30 minutes before bed. Keep a favorite guided meditation saved for nights you're extra stressed. The easier it is to start, the more likely you'll stick with it, even when life gets hectic. Over time, sharing these practices with friends, family, or co-workers can have a multiplying effect. As more people in a household or workplace adopt mindful sleeping routines, collective stress drops and moods tend to improve for everyone. Some workplaces, schools, or even neighborhoods have started group challenges, setting intentions together for 1 week or a month and discussing what's changed. It brings more support, more compassion, and helps cement new, healthier habits on a community level. It's important to remember that Buddhist sleep teachings aren't about achieving perfection or always having good nights. They're about resilience, building up an inner resource you can fall back on no matter what's happening on the outside. When old habits come back or tough emotions show up, you have real techniques at hand and a simple, powerful nightly reminder that you're not powerless. You can choose a healing approach to the end of each day, just as thousands around the world have done for centuries. If you want to track your progress, jot down short notes about how you feel each morning. Was your sleep deeper? Did you feel calmer when you woke? Did a pain or worry feel less heavy? Over the course of a month or so, you may notice patterns, a steady improvement, greater self-confidence, or better communication with people around you because your mind is less reactive. Even if you miss days, the memory of the good nights and peaceful mornings motivates you to return to your routine. All of these routines, the breath, intention, gratitude, forgiveness, shared wishes, are easy to adapt, expand, and teach. Kids can learn them. Grandparents pass them down. Partners can use them as a way to reconnect after a busy or difficult day. They can be woven into whatever you already do, whether you end your evening watching a show or reading a book, praying or stretching before bed. Being mindful and letting go are habits as much as they are skills. You might find that as you keep up these bedtime routines, your relationship with illness, stress, or pain transforms on its own. Difficulties don't disappear, but your power to meet them grows each time you put your attention inward before sleep. You're not just chasing better sleep, but building a steady resilience and grounded confidence with effects far beyond the bedroom. When you look at how regular, ordinary people around the globe are using these Buddhist teachings, the message is clear. You don't need to do anything extreme, expensive, or out of reach. Simple, nightly awareness and intention can change your life. Every breath, gentle word, or small act of forgiveness at bedtime helps. The benefits carry into your health, relationships, work, and daily challenges. The more you practice and share, the more the effects ramp up, not just for you, but for the people lucky enough to cross paths with you each day. Bringing these Buddhist sleep teachings into your life is like putting down new roots. You grow, recover, and support others, even after the hardest days or roughest stretches. With just a little effort, patience, and consistency, the power of natural overnight healing starts working for you and everyone in your circle day after day and year after year.